Just a couple of guys dropping nuggets of wisdom as we talk about life, the universe, and, well, everything. Welcome to WizNugs.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the inaugural episode of WizNugs. I'm Casey.
I'm Cisco.
And we're here to drop nuggets of wisdom on you.
Hopefully you'll consider them to be nuggets of wisdom, because I know that we do.
Indeed. So we've got a very special message prepared for you for the beginning, for the first one. Just wanted to talk a little bit about mindset, a little bit about how our words can shape our thoughts, and how our thoughts shape our reality. So specifically, I was thinking about how often we leave like a movie theater, for example.
Okay.
And we'll say something like, that really sucked.
As in the movie, right?
Right.
Yeah, right.
Or, that was awesome. Speaking, this is A, B, C, D, whatever. The movie is awesome. The movie is awful.
As in an absolute, this is the fact of the matter.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. So, when we say, in reality, it's just an opinion. So when we say, this is good, this is bad, that's tough. So the kind of the other side of that is to take it kind of up a notch and say, I didn't care for that movie, or I loved that movie. Now you're stating your opinion as an opinion. It might sound slightly less forceful. Maybe it's a little bit more like backing up, but it's stating your opinion as an opinion. And now you can have a conversation with somebody about an opinion.
Right, because the fact that your opinion is subjective. Right?
Exactly.
I say this all the time with texts or anything that you're trying to interpret without having the actual person in front of you saying something. Having those words and you're like, well, you put your own meaning in behind it, that's your opinion. This is how you're taking it in. So, like you're saying, is if I'm going to be all about absolutes and there is no room for debate or discussion, then how do you have a conversation with that person?
Exactly. And so you end up with like this weird fractured environment that we have where if you're part of political party A and someone is part of political party B and you say the wrong words that let them know that you're in the other group, you're cut off. Because everything is an absolute now. Everything is broken up into factions and tribes, and well, I guess that's a whole other thing for a different time.
Sure, and I see what you're saying is, and that's how we get to this divide, right? I think there's a place and time for having an absolute, but I think when you're just stating an opinion, if you're just stating how you think about something, it shouldn't be given the ninth degree, and someone coming at you and saying, well, just because you don't think the way that I do on this particular thing, and it could be as simple as opinion on a movie.
Right.
That now all of a sudden you're the bad guy and you are no longer going to be part of my life, and you know what, I'm just going to unfriend you now because I just can't. Right. I can't deal with your opinion.
Right. You don't deserve any of my time because you said this is that, and I disagree.
So the better option would be just to reframe it, if you would.
You can take it up to that first notch of I didn't like it, okay. I didn't care for it, it didn't resonate with me. And you can take it another step further and you can say, I didn't like this aspect of it. I felt like it would have been better if they had done it this way.
Right. Allowing for a little bit more constructive criticism, if you would.
And you're also giving now a place like, if I just say it was good and you say it was bad.
Right.
Then there's nowhere to go.
Right. And there's no context. There's no content to that conversation.
And you end up with nuh-uh. Yeah, and that's it. And that's as far as it can go.
Right.
If you say, I didn't care for it, you can say, oh, really? Why not? And then I have to stop and think about, well, what didn't I like about it? Let's see.
Then more honestly, you probably already did think about what you didn't like about it while you're watching it.
Possibly.
Sure.
Possibly. Or you could say, like, it might be that extra catalyst to think about it a little bit more.
Right.
And just be a little bit more introspective about, well, what didn't I like about it? Did I have a problem because some internet commentator said something about it before I watched it that colored my perception of it? Or was it because the pacing was a little slow? Or, I really don't like when they cut back and forth to what this group's doing and then what that group's doing. There's different things that you may or may not like about a movie, legitimately, that might make it hard for you, where someone else can say, "Oh, that didn't bother me at all."
Yeah, and I see your point, because even in our own minds, when we build up our own anticipation for something, right, and we have this this desire to see something that's going to be so fantastic and so awesome, and then you get there, and you and the director did not have the same same outlook on how the story should be told, and then you get in there.
We're talking to you, M. Night Shyamalan. Okay, Last Airbender, not what us cartoon fans were expecting.
Not the worst movie in the world, but I've seen worse.
Not what fans of the cartoon were expecting.
Well,
that's all I'm saying.
You know, if you would have included the catchphrases, then, you know, people might have gone to see it a second time after you re-released it.
So, that third level now.
Yeah.
First level, it sucked. Second level, I didn't care for it. Third level, I didn't like it as much as I thought I would because I wanted to see more of what my expectations.
Sure.
Or I didn't like the way that this character acted. Or I thought their accent was really bad. Or whatever. We can start thinking about more helpful ways of communicating with each other, because this is where it kind of gets into that, like the layers behind the layers. When we start getting deeper into this, we can say it might just be a conversation. But if we start saying things like, I suck, that becomes the internal monologue.
Sure.
And now when you are saying I suck, and that becomes I'm a waste of space, I shouldn't be here, my family would be better off without me, that kind of stuff it's tragic, because not only is it not true, but it's also harmful to any other positive thoughts that you could have, and anything else that you could do that would be constructive in personal growth or anything. We start talking in absolutes when it comes to movies, and we start talking in absolutes when it comes to self-identity, and then you lose shades of nuance, and you lose, like, opportunity there.
Right, and the only people who should be talking in absolutes are the Sith, and since we are neither one of those. But the point that you're trying to make here is, if you can be a little bit more analytical in your criticisms, especially when it comes to yourself, right? I'm not going to be able to tell you to stop feeling a particular way, but if you can internalize the idea of, okay, I feel bad about myself, why? Why do I feel bad about myself? Well, I had these goals that I had put in front of myself and I haven't achieved them yet.
Introspection matters.
Right, and then being able then to enumerate those out, and then being able to say, okay, then let's say goal number 1, how do I achieve goal number 1? What am I doing that's getting me there? What am I doing that's not getting me there? And then being able to hit those markers along the way.
We got to do an episode on goal setting later.
Well, obviously. But I think it's important that what this comes down to, when we talk about criticisms, whether it's of a movie or your life or anything out there, political opinions, it's important to be able to communicate and articulate what you're trying to get across. Whether it's with a friend or relative or yourself. You got to be able to articulate the actual things that are causing the issues that you're unsatisfied with, and then being able to communicate that out. And then, because if you can communicate to people clearly your thoughts, then you should be able to do it with yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Practice with yourself, at least.
Right. Because when you're telling yourself those things, those negative things, you usually are by yourself, right? You're usually in a moment of retrospect of some kind, and you're like, well, you know what, I'm really not happy with what's going on.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think that's key. I think that's very important. Being able to have those kind of discussions with people, and then again, being open-minded about it, totally possible after you've communicated exactly what you found upsetting or undesirable about the movie, that someone might be able to come back and say, however, I see your point, but let me kind of iterate these other things that happened later on, and that's why these things had to happen, or that's the way that they had to take it that way. It was so that later on it would be able to make sense when it went into this part of the movie, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's why we can learn from each other. We can learn from the nuance involved and not think that everybody's our enemy just because they have a different opinion than us.
So what would you think the summary of this would be in general?
Well, I feel like let's try and dig deeper into our thoughts and feelings and why we feel certain ways. one we didn't quite mention, but I do think is kind of integral to this is the feelings that we have when they're just in the background.
Mm-hmm.
They can color our perceptions of everything else. But when we stop and say, wait a minute, I feel angry. Why do I feel angry?
Right.
Or am I mad at this right now? Am I angry right now because I'm hungry? Or because I genuinely am upset? Or is it because I feel like I feel threatened, or I feel like someone wronged me? Whatever it is, to be able to dig deeper into your own thoughts and feelings and name them and understand what they are, that at least gets you that next level of self-awareness to be able to bring that to all of your relationships and all of your conversations and
or
being purposeful.
And knowing that's the case, knowing that I can now separate the two. Mm-hmm. This particular conversation has nothing to do with this particular emotion that I'm having right now.
Right.
Let me learn to isolate it, at least for now, not to throw it away or to swallow it, but let me just isolate it. I'm upset about this particular thing, but that has nothing to do with this particular conversation I'm having on this side, and not merge the two. And I think that's one of the hardest things that we have, right? Yeah. Because we take our feelings with us wherever we go, and then we incorporate that because that's our mood at the time.
I think that brings up another great point. So I know we're trying to conclude here and summarize as well.
No, but it's okay.
This is an awesome point here, is that when we're having, read a book that called it the emotional tunnel.
Okay.
When you're in that deeply emotional state where, just something has really triggered some deep emotional response in you, sometimes you need to step back. And having a discussion during that time can be impossible, especially if you're not used to regulating that portion of your internal, psyche. That then you're dealing with these emotions while you're also trying to have this other conversation about something else. Sometimes you just need to take a time out.
Yeah, and just realize that you're probably not in a emotional position to have those kind of interactions or conversations at the time, right? And that's perfectly fine. I think you'd rather...
And recognizing in yourself, and also cultivating that in your relationships, so that if you're having an argument and you're both heated up, sometimes rather than settling it right then and there because you're angry or because you're heated up, your adrenaline's pumping, to say, okay, you know what? Let's just table this for a minute, and I need to take like 10 minutes or whatever. I need to take a little walk. And it's not a sign that things aren't working. It's a sign that I want to have my full intellectual and emotional capacity to bring to bear on this issue. I don't want to say something stupid or mean just to win an argument because I'm mad.
Right. And that's typically what we do when we're feeling that we're overloaded and emotional. We need that justification, right? I need the justification for why I'm angry, and I'm going to make sure that you know that you are now the recipient of this anger. And it's never healthy, right? So, like you said, it's not a bad thing to be able to recognize within yourself what you need to do to bring yourself back to the intellectual thinking part state, right? Versus the emotional, I'm going to tell you everything I can think of in the planet, and I'm going to bring up everything I've ever felt that you did wrong to me.
Right.
Because,
sometimes.
Yeah, and because we're that way, right? It's because we want to, I know personally, I want to be the winner, right? I want to be the winner. And however, I've already made the recognition in myself that I don't want to be the winner at the cost of somebody else's emotional state or being. Right?
Right. Especially someone that you care about.
Right.
If you're having a conversation with a partner, spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever.
Child, parents.
And you're digging into this place of deep anger or competitiveness or whatever. Sometimes you gotta stop, step back, cool down, come back to it later. You got to go through that emotional tunnel before you can get to that intellectual resolution.
Yeah. So realize that was a little bit of a tangent, but I think it was important. It's relative here. Being able to communicate exactly not only what your thoughts are, but being able to communicate your emotions as well, and hopefully being able to do that at a point where you're calm and relaxed, and you can talk to your loved one, whoever it may be, and you can inform them hey, This is how I plan on handling my emotional states when I get worked up. It's not me
Right.
trying to ignore you because our conversations are important, but I need a moment of time, whatever that is, to be able to calm down, relax, and to think about it, and then formulate my responses to how I want to talk with you, and then come back to you at that moment in time, so that we are not having an emotional argument. It is a logical argument, if need be.
Right. So here's the thing. Try to dig deeper into your feelings. Put some nuance on it instead of saying you are whatever kind of name you feel like attaching to the end of that, or that movie sucked, or whatever. Add to it. Add some layers. I feel that movie wasn't so good because main character's accent was just awful. I couldn't get past it. Second one, emotional tunnel. Sometimes we need to step back, get a little bit of space, get our limbic system to cool down, the stress hormones to stop flowing. We need to just get back to that neutral position emotionally to be able to have real meaningful conversation.
And I would say thirdly, and it's part of the first part, the communication part. It is so important to be able to communicate exactly what your thoughts are, what your feelings are, not only to the people that are around you, but to yourself. Because having that analysis and understanding of where you're at is only going to be beneficial to you going down the road.
All right.
So I'm Cisco.
And I'm Casey.
And thank you for joining us on WizNugs.
Thanks for joining us today on WizNugs. If you liked what you heard, spread the word. For more information, head over to mywiznugs.com.